So here we got an anonymous question. Someone who business related doesn't want maybe want to expose their company, their firm, their employer. I'm not sure. But it was a good question from Growing Concerns. So Growing Concerns recently received a work request from an existing client and wondered whether other clients are thinking the same thing. This is Max, everybody, by the way. Their message was, the message from the client was, I'd like to ask you to do this thing if you have the bandwidth, and I need it in the next couple of weeks. And that's a great I love getting those emails. Here's the thing I need, and I don't need it today. It can come in time, and I'm excited. I'm coming to you because I know you're my firm. So those are good questions. But Growing Concerns was worried because, if they're asking, do you have time? Does that mean that they don't know that we've got capacity, or do they think we're slow, or what is that? What's the story behind the story there?
Right. This question of bandwidth, I guess, like, do you have, what does that mean to them, or what is their understanding of bandwidth versus what we actually know to be the truth on our end? And also the request itself, I think a lot of times clients or customers don't necessarily understand how long something takes. Something that they think is super easy could actually end up, like, we look at it and go, it's a little bit more complicated than perhaps, you're thinking, and here's why. And then sometimes it's, hey, this thing, here's all this stuff I need you to do. And can you do it, quickly? It's like, yeah, that looks pretty straightforward. We can do that pretty quickly. But they think it's going to take a really long time. So it's an education sort of thing. And, your customers and your clients aren't in the same industry as you, most likely. So they don't that, like what things take for yourself to do things, but they don't know that,
Right. And so this just kind of like any sort of a sales and client relationship situation, it's an opportunity to give them more information, maybe even make them aware of other things that they have never asked for before. We have had some situations, Sarah, where we've had a client for a while, but we've only engaged with them, and they've only engaged us for one particular service area. And, we can have told them at the beginning all the things that we do, but maybe there was some turnover in staff, or we've added capabilities, or their needs have changed, and suddenly they have a greater need for the kinds of things that they never asked us for before. And so all of those cases are, it's kind of like, how do you not know that we do that? We do that all the time. But the fact is that people don't remember things.
And they're not living in our world. Yeah, they're not living in our world. We're executing these things for people day in, day out. And we know what we do, of course. And, our website maybe is telling people what we do, but they're not, going to our website and like looking at our capabilities every time they need a thing from us. They have a relationship with you or me. So they're calling you or me and like, hey, how we have this thing. Is this something that you guys do? We're not sure. So that we run into that quite often.
Sure. And so it's a great chance to just kind of share with them what we can do, show them some examples. It's a reminder to me that one needs to have like some nice collateral, things that you can email, or, quick summaries that maybe you can expand on, that are simpler to digest than a whole like business pitch presentation or something that just says, hey, these are the kinds of things we do. Here are links to a couple great examples, and let's give a chat. It's also a reminder to try to reach out periodically when people aren't asking for things, and just say, hey, how are things going with you? How could we be helpful?
Right. And I think along that same line, the question here is about like, oh, well, my team has recently grown. And so our capacity is larger than, perhaps what you knew a couple of months ago. And so letting people know that in a sort of outside, let's take the pandemic out of it, like like you say, like kind of periodically checking in with clients to let them know, hey, just so you know, our team has grown. We now have these new capabilities, or we have expanded capabilities because our team has grown. And I think for me personally, like we do try to let our clients know when we're hiring, and just to let them know we're hiring this position because we're growing and we're going to be able to better serve you. So in advance of us even bringing on that new team member, I try to start talking to our clients about it so that they know it's coming. But I think in this case, I don't know what the situation is, but letting people know during a pandemic, it's a little bit different, because what the question here is saying, like, a lot of businesses are downsizing or closing, or just, they're really struggling. And so if you're out there saying, we've got all this capacity and we're growing and, all these good glowing things, it might come off kind of not being very empathetic to what the, world is experiencing. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. And so I think probably every firm is a little bit different there, figuring out what's the right way to shape that. And number one, I think it just is part of it is just tone, like celebration and stuff like that. Well, certainly I'm not going to do anything that involves a parade, visuals of a parade or anything like that. That just feels like wrong. I don't know that I'd be able to get imagery that would be right. So there's some pieces of that are just kind of like, maybe it's too obvious to say, but it's just like the style of the communication is there. But you can do that without seeming like somber. Like, in these dark times, we feel so fortunate to be able. I think there's another way you could push the tone too far the other direction too.
Right. Yeah. Well, balance is important in communications, of course. Figuring out what the right. Sometimes like leaning towards humorous or leaning towards somber in certain, it can be good, but I think you have to consider what you're trying to communicate, when you're trying to communicate it, what that end user is going through. And if you have a lot of customers and you know them pretty well and you know their situation, if they're struggling, or you know that they've had to lay people off, well, then you can tailor that outreach to them very specifically so that it is in the right, tone for them.
Right. So it isn't like an ambulance chaser thing. It's like, hey, we know you had some issues. We, we're available if you want to think about that, and maybe we'll offer you this extra something for free. Because we are, I think, trying to support other businesses, other clients, and we want our clients to hang around. We want them to survive just as much as we want our vendors to survive. We all are kind of, I think, in the best world, we're in this together, as opposed to scrambling to get that last penny.
Right. And I think that, if there's a way with this new hire that you've brought on, or this additional capacity that you built, if you can tailor the, we know right now that you're trying to improve your website so that you can, get more sales online, that you need those sales online. Well, we've just hired a web person who, we'd like to offer, they take a free, they'll take a free audit of your site and see if there's things that, you could improve so that you can reach that goal. So kind of really tailoring it to that person's need. And then, but you can still tie in, oh, well, we have this other person, we have this capacity, without saying we're growing and we can now serve all of your needs, or whatever it might be. So
I think that's right. So being thoughtful, and maybe then if you're ever unsure about the message, having other people take a look at it, maybe somebody who's a little bit outside your scope, and just seeing without knowing a lot about the behind the scenes, how does it sound to someone else? Always good to have a reality check like that.
Definitely. Totally agree. All right.
We have